Okay, I have been told we are good to go. So we are back in our special meeting, and we are going to move on to agenda item 2B, discussion regarding the LESD equity statement. Before I turn the floor over to Mr. Honak, who asked that this item be added to the agenda, I would like to ensure that we all have a shared understanding on the current LESD equity statement. This statement was put together by the governing board based on a review of disaggregated data. This data listed achievement and discipline by demographic, and the disparities were notable. Based on this, we had discussed and refined at 2 study sessions in the fall of 2020 and received community and staff feedback on our proposed equity statement. The statement was unanimously approved at an open meeting in December of 2020. And as the document states at the end, it says, this document will be updated periodically and expanded as needed. We did that exact thing last summer. And the document was discussed, revised, and then yet again approved by the governing board in August of 2021. This equity statement is a statement of support that outlines what this board would like to commit to support student achievement. Board Member Honak, you have the floor.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is Jeremy Honak here. The equity statement is driving enrollment away from LESD. The bottom line is our family units and public schools are in trouble. They're actually in serious trouble, and we're moving in exactly the wrong direction. Having trouble moving my Zoom window out of the way so I can read. The override survey results presented at the May 10th, 2022 school board meeting asked if, quote, our public schools are heading in the right direction in our district, close quote. 55% of the respondents think that LESD is heading in the wrong direction. The animosity and divisiveness witnessed at past school board meetings should have convinced the board members that the school district is moving in the wrong direction with an equity program. LESD school district data has shown that all students' cultural groupings have resulted in different outcomes. When family unit cultures are involved, disparity in outcomes can be more deeply rooted. You can only solve that problem by changing the cultures, which is outside of the purview of LESD. On the other hand, striving for academic excellence, and I don't mean as a fluffy euphemism, but by high scores, is common ground for unification of all cultures and moving forward successfully. If the school board members decide that the continued divisive pursuit of equity ideology is more important than academics, then you leave parents with no other choice but to leave the LESD school district and place their children in school programs that support their shared values. Fewer students will mean less state revenue, which means fewer teachers needed. Life is about choices. Just recently, the Supreme Court ruled that religious schools now must receive the same funding as other school choices. This will have a devastating impact on LESD enrollment in the near future, because parents all of a sudden can pull their kids out of LESD to go to higher performing Catholic schools, for instance. When this new equity statement was passed, it was done in a hurry. One board member lamented that we weren't even discussing it. And the $5,000 survey that LESD did shows that parents hate the equity statement, rating it 7th and last in priority. The highest priority was academics. The override failed in spite of rosy predictions by the study people. That academic achievement has declined since conscious discipline and equity have been imposed. COVID has gone away, but low achievement scores have not gone away. There is not one shred of evidence that equity, conscious discipline, or SEL social emotional learning programs academically. Equity is inherently racist because it divides people by race and then treats them differently. Equity is further racist because it belittles some races. So the data that was mentioned that this is based upon is data divided by race, but it's ignoring the real cause, which is not race differences, it's cultural. Equity always denies someone's rights by giving them less than their share, because someone decides that another person should get more in the name of equity. LESD, like Scottsdale, is the joke of Arizona school systems, even by extreme left-leaning media like the Arizona Republic. An argument is that LESD can do both at the same time, meaning academics and equity. That is a false argument. LESD cannot do a good job teaching the advantaged students. At the recent retreat, Superintendent Clemens stated regarding student success that all goals have been addressed. To the outsider, LESD appears to be Alice in Wonderland.
I'm sorry, Mr. Honak, we can't hear you. Could you please repeat back to your last bullet point?
Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
I'm seeing it lit up here.
I believe your microphone is cutting in and out, Board Member Honak.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now. Please repeat back to your commentary regarding the retreat.
Okay, give me a moment here. How is this microphone? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Is this better than before?
Yes, it appears to be better.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I don't know. Equity is inherently racist because it divides people by race and treats them differently.
Mr. Honak, you can skip forward to the next to the last bullet. You already covered those bullet points.
Okay, LESD saying LESD can do both at the same time is a false argument. Meaning doing equity and academics. LESD cannot do a good job teaching advantaged students who also have low scores, not where they should be. At the recent retreat, Superintendent Gunning stated regarding student success that all goals have been addressed, at least according to the minutes of that meeting. To an outsider, LESD appears to be Alice in Wonderland because only 32% of LESD graduates can do math at standards. At Verrado and Millennium High, the two best high schools LESD feeds, only 40% of students are up to math standards. How can high schools perform when 2/3 of the students they get from LESD can't do math anywhere near grade level? When LESD claims it is A+ and the superintendent claims the student success goals have been met, the public sees LESD is neither competent nor honest. When they claim at a retreat that administrators should watch videos and then arbitrarily decide to not make a video of the retreat, they are a joke. When they have silly rules that limit when plans and goals can be changed, despite a world that is constantly changing around us, they are a joke. When the board over and over votes against setting, quote, improving academics as a goal, the public sees LESD as a joke. Enrollment will continue to go down because parents have better options to educate their children. Overrides will continue to not pass because to the public, it is throwing good money after bad. And we have a new law the legislature just passed that I forget the term of it, but that parents are now going to be able to get money to send their kids to the school of their choice. No one can argue against a school with high achieving students. There are schools all over Arizona where all students are high achievers. Catholic schools with much less money and many disadvantaged students have 20% or higher achievement scores and 99% graduate and 97% get higher education or go into the military. This is not an impossible dream. Our schools were best in the world with much less resources. We can make them great again. But as long as our goals are fluffy and we pursue Marxist and racist nonsense like equity, LESD will continue to die.
Thank you for your feedback, Mr. Honak. I would like to ask each board member for their additional feedback. Board Member Clymer?
I think the most important thing to take away, Board Member Honak, from what you said is that, and I don't know if you would agree, but I think those of us sitting up here would agree that everyone's priority is academic achievement, and whether we address it in the same ways might be, might show differences in our approach. But I think it's unfair to say that this district is not putting academics first. I think that this equity statement is not doing many of the things that were discussed in Board Member Honak's discussion earlier. I don't think I need to go point for point. I think we've discussed this as a board and with the community several times. And while, again, there may be some discussion points that people differ on, I think overall the most important thing that we should be focused on right now is how we get every single child to achieve. Not our high achievers, not kids that come from Title I schools, or not kids that come from non-Title I schools. I think we need to find a way, and to me, this equity statement is just one small part of our strategy to fundamentally change kids' lives by giving them opportunities. And I think that's what we should stay focused on. And I think I don't personally see anything in the equity statement as it is written today that takes away from that. So while I think we can discuss it point for point, and I'm open for doing that, I think the bottom line is that, to me, this is one strategy in helping us to have every child reach their academic potential, whether that is proficiency, highly proficient, whatever it may be. It's our job to make sure every child achieves that, and kids need different things to achieve their potential. And I think that's what this statement does.
Dr. Dowling?
Yeah, yes. I think the question is, does the district really need a 2-page equity statement? If you look at the strategic plan, 5-year plan, if you go to the second page, elementary, Litchfield Elementary School District, diversity, equity, and inclusion goals, right there. It's very clear and concise. It says all kids, basically this is what your purpose statement would be if you had a purpose statement, which is, purpose statement would indicate why we exist as an entity. And this states it very well. It goes into academics, and the question is, and you go further into, you go 2 pages more, then you have this, you have an additional equity statement. I don't understand why you have a clear and concise statement here, very brief, to the point, and then you go and have something else that's called basically the same thing. I'm at a loss on why we have that. I was at a loss when I first saw it.
Can I shed some light on that? Dr. Dowling? Can I shed some light on that?
Okay. Well, I'm not done.
Okay, well, you're welcome to continue, or I can shed some light when you're done.
I'm not done. The equity statement in of itself I'm confused on the timelines. Maybe you will shed some light on that. Was the equity statement adopted on August the 10th, was this a product of the open meeting violation? If it was a product of it.
No, it was not.
Okay.
I'm happy to explain that to you when you're done.
Okay, for right now, I'm done.
Okay. Let's start with the difference between the equity statement and the equity goals that you referenced. The equity statement is not a product of the district. That's a product of this board. Okay. This board worked on that together and decided to adopt that so that it was clear to not only the district administration, but also the staff, as well as the students, families, and community, where we stood when it comes to providing the resources that students need to meet their specific, meet them at their specific place in time to help them to be successful. The district diversity, equity, and inclusion goals came out of the Diversity Empowerment Committee, which are two separate entities. There was a committee that was put together in the 2020-2021 school year that consisted of community members, staff, teachers, etc. I was the sole board member on that committee as well. And that committee is who came up with helped to come up with the goals. But the equity statement was done outside of that committee. So the statement has no bearing on the Diversity Empowerment Committee. Does that make sense? The differences between those two documents and why the equity statement is separate?
Two separate committees, is what you're saying?
Well, there was no committee for the equity statement. It was simply the board. The board put that together.
With public input?
Yes. We had 2 study sessions that, of course, were open to the public. We did also solicit public feedback and we received public feedback from the community and staff. And then we adopted the equity statement in December of 2020. We made some revisions and then re-adopted it in August of 2021. Again, with additional public feedback.
Okay.
So what I would add to that is I am also not a fan of having a bunch of documents that are separate. However, we were in the middle of our strategic plan, and so we couldn't really encompass these equity aspirations into that plan. However, I would foresee that being encompassed within that strategic plan our next go around. And consolidating, not exactly, of course, but consolidating some of those ideas, especially around, hopefully, resource distribution and resource allocation, because we have seen success with that. Do you have any other questions or points of clarification, Dr. Dowling?
Not at this time.
Board Member Zaidama.
I guess my feedback is this equity statement, to me, has always been bigger than just a race situation, which I feel like that's what it keeps boiling down to, and people keep getting angry about, well, we're trying to separate people by race. And for me, it really was never about that. It's about our special education kids. It's about our kids that are coming from low socioeconomic backgrounds. Our kids are coming to us from different places and spaces, and we have to make sure we meet them where they are. And it is important to me that we distribute our resources equitably to make sure that all our kids are starting at the same place. It's not about them finishing at the same place, but it's about them being able to start at the same place. And to say that we don't already try to do that without an equity statement would be false, because we have special education, we do IEP programs. Those are individualized education programs. We make special cases for each and every student that needs those services, and we provide what they need. And it is different than what a student that is a high-achieving student will need. So I am really disappointed that we are talking about this again and trying to there's a board member, I feel like, trying to drag us through the mud again because of this, and it's not fair. We've talked about this many, many times through study sessions upon study sessions and many general meetings that we've had and special meetings, and it has been adopted. It's something that's been out there to the community. We haven't had any negative feedback since we made changes the last time, and I don't see why we have to keep talking about this. I think that we have made a decision and that we should continue to stick to this decision and not keep bringing it up because some people aren't happy with the way the results went when we voted on this last time.
Thank you, Board Member Zaidama. I will keep my comments brief. I would just like to reference the presentation that we just heard about our ELD program. And I look forward to this entire district mirroring that program in that they are not looking to change the culture of those children and their families. They are looking to embrace and celebrate it. And the day that we do that as a district and embrace each other for our own differences and keep an open mind to learn from each other will be a fantastic day. So, Board Member Honak, I want to thank you for presenting your point of view. I respect it. I do believe we have the same goal in student achievement. However, I will echo Board Member Clymer's comments to say that I believe we have a different methodology and preferred way of getting there. However, I am hopeful that we can continue to work together and achieve success in that goal.
I would like to respond to some comments.
Go ahead, Board Member Honak.
Thank you. First off, Ms. Moran is not telling the truth at all about the birth of this. Anyone can watch the early meetings where Board Member Clymer and others admit that they never showed it to the public. Actually, Ms. Moran also. Secondly, everyone can go Google Arizona Attorney General Litchfield closing letter and read for themselves the truth about the genesis of the equity statement, not the way that it's being misrepresented here. Next, you're shooting the messenger, okay? I'm just stating the facts. You all can pretend that this is wonderful, but you can't pretend that people aren't leaving Litchfield Elementary School District. And people are not stupid. They know when they see a goal, and that is a reflection of what the district is doing. Well, then what exactly is the problem that only about 30% of your final product, your graduates from LESD, can do math up to grade level? That's shocking. That's just, the schools should all be closed because no one is doing their job. I'm not blaming the teachers. I'm not blaming am I being heard? Does anybody hear me?
Yes,
Yes, we can hear you loud and
Okay,
clear,
I'm
Board
sorry,
Member Honak.
I see Brad on the screen. I didn't know whether there was a problem.
Yes,
Okay.
please wrap it up, Mr. Honak.
I'm the messenger stating why we're losing enrollment and what is going on. And right now, right around the corner is a raft of new charter schools. You've got a lot of students that have a Catholic, talking about embracing culture, and they have and they have Catholic backgrounds, and I think a lot of them, once they realize that they can send their kids to Catholic schools, which for some reason are able to, with a lot less money and a lot less equity and a lot less fancy talk, are able to have about 20% better achievement scores on average. It's a no-brainer. That's what's going to happen. So you criticize me all you want. I'm just stating facts. The facts are the parents don't like it. The facts are they're going to be leaving, and they already have left. Our enrollment is down, I don't know what percentage. And we had a expensive survey that showed that a lot of enrollment went down, and then after COVID, it went back up in every school district except for Litchfield Elementary School District. So to sit and ignore reality out there is just it was number 7th on the survey. If there were 20 items on the survey, it would have been 20th. These are just facts. And as I said, I'm just a messenger, and you can talk about, you care about academics, but you're not doing anything about it. You're focusing on the equity instead. So that's unfortunately the direction that LESD is going to be continuing on, it sounds like. So it's sad to see such a great school district with the resources it has and teachers and parents kind of going down the tubes because of a misguided board. Thank you.
Thank you for your interpretation of the facts, Board Member Honak. We will now move on to Agenda Item 3A, which is the consent agenda. Are there any items that board members would like to pull from the consent agenda, or questions board members have on items on the consent agenda?
I don't have anything to pull off the consent agenda, but I would just like to recognize and say congratulations, maybe preemptively, to two of our new principals sitting in the audience tonight. Thank you for joining us, and congratulations on your new promotions.
If there are no questions or items to pull, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
Having a first and a second, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I will echo those congratulations to our new principals. Thank you for being here tonight, and we look forward to getting to know you better next year. Next up is item 4B, which is the approval of Community Education Department preschool teacher hiring alternatives. This will be presented by Dr. Stair.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the governing board, and birthday boy. It's good to have a fellow Cancer in the room with me.
All right.
I'm here to talk a little bit about, and if you don't mind, I'll make it as quick as possible. I'll summarize in order to shorten the meeting if I can. Am I in control of the slideshow, or are you guys doing that? Okay. Am I? All right. There you go. And so the reason I'm here today is about a year and 3 months ago, the board voted to approve allowing us to hire credentialed teachers to replace certified teachers by attrition, meaning that we were going from salaried to classified teachers, hourly teachers. And that has gone well. We have 4 of them now, and they're excellent. And the reason that we're making this proposal tonight is that we needed 6 and have so far only been able to find 2. The presentation later will say 5, but we actually got one this week. But we're down by 4, and we have no applicants who are credentialed. We have gotten certified applicants, but they go away as soon as they apply, almost, because there's other positions open and they can take kindergarten or first grade positions. And so we would like to have the option of hiring. We would like you to authorize us to hire certified or emergency certified preschool teachers if a credentialed teacher is not available. And we will continue looking for credentialed teachers. I'll scroll through the PowerPoint here. We have run out of credentialed applicants. I think I already kind of gave the background there. But we have had 3 certified teachers resign, and we are creating 3 new classes. There's actually 4, but one of them is already filled as part of the new 50-50 classroom model. So we needed 6 teachers. And the job postings, which previously said certified or credentialed, have been changed to say credentialed only. And so certified people have stopped applying. Let's see. The long and the short of it is, if you approve this proposal, then we will hopefully be able to fill these positions before the school year starts. And honestly, I don't see much other way to fill the positions. And we may get fortunate and have a rush of people apply who are all credentialed and be able to hire them, and that would be fine. But if not, we want to have the option of being able to hire certified or emergency certified. I'll go through the financial impact here just a little bit. The exact impact wouldn't be known because we don't know how many certified teachers we might end up with. But based on our tuition rate and pay rates for beginning teachers, a credentialed teacher's pay right now consumes about 24% of the tuition for a full-day class with 22 students in it, which is about average enrollment. A certified teacher's salary in the same class would consume about 35%. And I guess the point of all that is that it's not going to break the budget since we have the grant that we're using right now, the Child Care Stabilization Grant. And so it's not going to adversely affect the budget for this year, but long term, when that grant goes away, it's very likely that we're going to have to raise rates, and the amount that we raise rates will depend almost entirely on our staffing costs. And so if we have to hire a lot of certified teachers, then we would have to raise rates more. If we don't, then our raise increase would be less. And I'm happy to go back and cover anything that you feel I might have glossed over a little too much. We would change the postings right away if you approve this, and we would start hiring certainly as quickly as we can. As soon as the principals come back in July, pretty much every classified applicant gets soaked up at that time because everybody needs people and they're all hiring as quickly as they can. And so we would certainly like to be able to hire now and get those positions taken care of so that we can make sure that the kids have a teacher in the room on day one, a qualified teacher. Do you have any questions or anything that you'd like me to discuss or explain further?
I have a question. On your first financial impact slide, you mentioned that with the recent pay increase, right, we're going to go from 24% of a full day class to 35% for a beginning teacher. What is the likelihood? I mean, so basically what you're saying is 35% is the minimum, because you might not get a beginning teacher,
Sure.
right? We might get a seasoned teacher or something like that that might. So 35 is the minimum of what we could expect in terms of that. That's correct.
Yeah, 35% is the minimum. I didn't do the math on each successive step of that.
I don't need that. I just wanted
yeah.
to make sure that you calculated that based on
that's
base
correct.
pay of an entering teacher, 0 to 2 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
previously the gap was actually bigger, but with our recent pay increase, now the credentialed teachers are 24%, and so it's not as big a gap between them now as it used to be.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously we need teachers in classrooms. We have preschool students that are signed up and want to come, so I think it's imperative that we have teachers. I would encourage you to continue to seek out credentialed teachers, because we are going to come very quickly on the point that our tuition is going to outpace the
Certainly.
ability for students to, well, we've talked about that many times, I'm not telling you anything new, but so I think, at the end of this next school year, I think we have to be prepared to raise rates. We cannot continue to run in the red. That's just, for me as a board member, that's just not an option. Unfortunately, our preschool is not funded in the same mechanism as the rest of our grades. So we, unfortunately, because of this, we'll have to, raise rates in the next year. And I think the grant bought us another year, which was great, and maybe something will come between now and then that will offer that again. But I would just continue to, encourage you to, look for credentialed teachers as we can. But
For sure. Yeah.
We need to fill them, so I would do that with the caveat that we're prepared to raise tuition rates at the end of next school year.
Dr. Steyer, will you refresh my memory? Did we raise tuition rates coming into this 22-23 school year?
We did not. We raised $2 to compensate for the
credit card thing.
transaction fee, but that was all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we consider raising tuition?
We did not.
Okay. I understand we have the child care stabilization grant. Could you, well, I guess let me ask first, is it too late to raise tuition for the 22-23 school year?
It is not. I think in terms of fairness to parents, it would be a shock to the system to say, you've signed up for this program and guess what, the price is going to be different. Although in our advertising materials, it does say, we do leave that caveat that that tuition can rise as needed.
Well, yes, I am shocked every time I pull up to the gas pump and I have to pay the gas prices. So I think based on the inflation that we're experiencing right now, as well as the pay increases that we allowed for all of our staff this year, a increase in tuition rates seems reasonable. So I would ask you to think about that in relation to the increased expenses that we may be, I know we don't know for sure what those are going to be, but that we may be experiencing this year, because what I don't want to happen is, to Board Member Clymer's point, I do not want to see this program losing money again. And so I don't want to have to this year say no increase and next year say 20%
Huge
increase,
yeah.
no one's going to like that either.
Correct.
So I would rather see a stair-step approach if possible for that. I think that's usually going to be easier to swallow on that. And again, I'm glad that we have this grant that's helping us out this year, but we know that's a cliff, and we need to just be, I think, a little more cognizant of our actual expenses if we're going to adopt this. This wasn't our plan for the year, and so we had a plan, and if the plan changes, we might need to change the tuition as well.
If I may suggest a course of action, normally in January or February, we do a market study. We just find out what all our commercial competitors are paying, and we try to make sure that we can provide a reasonable and affordable alternative to the parents compared to the going market. We could do that same market study now based on the rates going into the school year and see what that would show. Now, I know our commercial competitors' prices have risen, and I also know that their wages have risen because we've lost some people to some of our commercial competitors. And so if you would like, we can go ahead and do a market study now, and I can come back to the next board meeting with a recommendation based on that.
I would like that, but I'd like to hear what the other board members think about that.
Yes, I would like to see that at our next meeting if we can do that.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see considerations, see what your recommendation would be as far as an increase. I hate to do it with the school year starting up, but price increases do come with the situation we're in.
I'm in agreement. I mean, I think let's at least just look at the information before we make a decision. And if we, feel like we can hold off for another year, great. If we feel like, I do agree with President Moran that stair-step, slightly this year, slightly next year, somehow feels better than a 20 or 25% increase next
Right.
year, which feels really scary. So I think that maybe it would help us alleviate some of that sort of falling off the cliff at the end of this year if we were to do that. So thank you for offering. That'd be great.
You bet.
Board Member Honak.
Yeah, it seems like we switched. Very good presentation, Mr. Sturr. I agree with your recommendations, but somehow we seem to have shifted into tuition, which I don't think is on the agenda. Maybe it is, but it's not the time to do that right now, and it should be done with the markets and analysis in the whenever Mr. Sturr said during the middle of the year, some point.
Yes, we're not making any decisions on the tuition tonight. We will put that on the agenda for the next meeting, and we will wait for a presentation from Dr. Stair in regards to the tuition. However, the tuition is part of the overall program, and that is what's being discussed tonight, the financial impact of hiring teacher alternatives. Are there any other questions for
But
Dr.
this is
Stair
this
on
is saving
the
money. What
teacher
we just saw.
hiring alternatives? Board Member Honak, do you have a question?
What I was going to say is that the presentation that we were just given was actually going to end up saving money. I don't know how it morphed into,
Actually, hiring a certified teacher is more expensive than a credentialed teacher. So if we hire all certified teachers, it will cost us more money. That's what Dr. Stair is asking us to approve, is to be able to hire certified teachers who are more expensive.
Okay, so I don't understand the reason. No, he's recommending that we hire credentialed teachers. Or
No,
not.
we already
I
have-
think I misunderstood. Okay. All right, let's just pass on this. I'm good to go. We'll move on.
Okay. Then I will move to approve the hiring alternatives presented.
Second.
Having a first and a second, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Stair.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is item 4C, additional stipend requests recommended for approval. This will be presented by Superintendent Gunning.
Madam President, members of the governing board, we would ask that you approve these additional stipends for summer school based on the caseload that actually came through for our summer school program, which was funded by the governor's Summer Boost grant.
I have one point of clarification. Will the stipends be paid from the governor's grant?
Correct.
Okay. Any board member questions on agenda item 4C?
I just had one clarification. Doesn't really have anything to do with approving the stipends necessarily, but you list here that you have summer school coordinators. Are coordinators also teaching, or is that a separate position? So they wouldn't be getting the teaching stipend and the coordinator stipend, two separate?
Yeah, they're just the coordinator. So they're like the
Okay.
principal.
Okay,
So
I understand. Got it. I
handling
just
the
wanted to make
day-to-day.
sure. I figured, but I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
I will entertain a motion if there are no other questions.
I move to approve additional stipend request recommended, as recommended.
I second.
Having a first and a second, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is item 4D, approval of a new position and job description, Director of School Safety. This will be presented by Executive Director Qualls.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Gunning. You have our request. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have a couple questions. Who does this now?
Currently, Mrs. Duplain is overseeing the safety program.
It's always been that way. Somebody at the site has to be in charge of this, the disaster plans and the emergency plans and the evacuation plans.
Right, so Mrs. Duplain has worked with the schools on that, with each of the principals and departments. So she is the one at the district level that's been working on this.
Okay. Now, is this, I'm a little bit confused on exactly, what's the protocol now? I mean, how do you ensure that everything is everybody has an action plan, they have something besides as a substitute, you get a one-page thing that in case of a fire drill, you go down over here, you go out there to the football field at 20-yard line on the north end zone, not the south end zone, and that's all you have. And you have a little piece of paper that's on the glass, and you can pull it down in case there's a lockdown. That's all the information you have. So this is going to do what for us?
So I'm going to pass over to Mrs. Duplain.
Dr. Dowling, thank you for the question. All of our schools and departments are responsible for completing an emergency operation plan annually, which has a bunch of requirements. We use the template from Arizona Department of Education. So all of them complete that every year, which decides who their incident commander is and all the different roles they have on their campus in case of emergencies. From there, they turn them into us. We review them, make sure they feel supported in that. And we go throughout the year when there's minor crises, thank goodness, that we review the plan, we ensure training happens after, we ensure we have all the drills in place, and we just ensure we're not just compliant, but as trained and prepared as possible. With the increase in incidences lately and the different trainings we've been going to, we've realized that we truly need one person to focus on this, to be walking our campuses, to be working with our principals, to ensure that we are way beyond compliant, that we are prepared. To be out at trainings as much as possible, learning cutting edge safety protocols and supports that we need to have in place to be analyzing the data from different places around our nation that experience these crises to make sure that we are truly, truly prepared. And it's not just something to check off anymore. We need to have it on the forefront of everything we do. And we need one person, we feel we need one person to head this up to ensure we're always as prepared as we need to be.
So we weren't prepared before?
No, we were as prepared as we could be, but we feel now that the more we discuss, we're meeting as a tri-district now to really talk about different safety things that we have in place. We are picking the brains of our feeder school, Agua Fria, who has a director of safety, and we just started really thinking through it right now, and we realize that our district has gotten bigger, the needs have gotten larger, and we just truly feel we need one person now to mirror our feeder school and really learn from them and move forward with that.
I don't disagree that we don't need somebody. My question is, why did it take so long to get one?
That's a good
That's
question.
my question.
Okay, I'm sorry,
Number
I
one.
misunderstood that.
This job description is huge, and you're telling me that you did all this specifically?
Yeah, the majority of it. Yes, we did the majority of this, and then we started looking at the job description of Agua Fria, and we had it kind of splattered around in different directors and different leaders, and we feel we could be more effective if we had one person handling this.
I agree 100%. I just, I'm amazed that something wasn't done earlier, before my time, but there's a couple questions I have. This sounds like a fire marshal to me.
Actually, we see it more as someone who is boots on the ground, working alongside our principals, ensuring they are prepared, ensuring they have trainings ready to go, supporting them in working through problems with them on their campus in regards to safety. We also see them as learning from the best and bringing it to us to make sure that we are moving our practices forward.
Okay. You know what a fire marshal does?
I do, and I think it's, we've had a lot of experience with fire marshals coming through and going through a safety protocol and compliance. To me, what'd you say? Yeah, to me it's different because we want to get beyond compliance and make sure that we are proactive, evidence-based, and all of our practices are aligned with the top-notch districts around the nation.
All right, and then in the job description, under experience, if we can go there, the education requirement, it's just something that stuck out. Are we there?
Mm-hmm.
It says a high school diploma required, and then it says a college degree, bachelor's degree required. You've got a bachelor's degree, then it's irrelevant if you've got a high school degree. That's the only thing that stuck in my mind. And then the second thing is 2 to 4 years related experience in what? Specific to this job description, are they working with schools?
So we were thinking on that component of related experience, it could be law enforcement, could be military background, it could be someone who is overseeing security of an organization, either in education and or outside of education.
But not specifically related to educational settings?
Not necessarily.
Would that be preferred in your mind or not?
Yeah, I think that's listed.
Yeah, I think the preferred part is where we say prior experience in K-12 safety and or prior experience in law enforcement or licensed security personnel.
Okay. The law enforcement's fine. I think you may want to consider adding first responder, because I could see a a first responder, i.e. a fire person, i.e. a retired fire marshal. I'll go back to that. I remember those, that is compliance, but they're also involved in safety and what's going on at a site. Sometimes or a fire investigator and things of that nature. Also, what about this, okay, I'm sorry, it says resides within the, okay, that's preferred that they live within the boundaries. Okay.
We want them to be able to respond quickly, especially on the weekends.
Yeah,
or off
understood.
hours.
For some
And
reason,
then
I
when you go
thought it
back
was-
up to the experience, the educational requirement piece, the reason it has the high school diploma or equivalent required, and then it goes down to bachelor's degree or equivalent experience, because they may not have a bachelor's degree.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
See what I'm saying? Like, because going into law enforcement, you don't necessarily have to have a degree. So we didn't want to exclude anyone from that. But if they had equivalent
yeah.
experience, that would count.
Understood. That's the reason you would have that. Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you.
Dr. Dowling, you will find that we have run lean for many, many years, and our executive directors, our superintendent, our directors, our principals wear many hats that other organizations have the robust staffing to make up for. So
But that,
this won't be the last time you're surprised.
yeah, I agree, but an overall picture of a corporation, this is a corporation, and we are the board of directors.
Yes.
These are the kind of things that should have been identified and deemed as a essential type of a situation. And also, one last thing, this is not in the current budget. This will be over and above, which would be about, including benefits, would be about $100,000, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have.
Any other board member questions or comments on this position?
I had one quick question. You mentioned obviously training and developing new protocols. So would this person be responsible for training, let's say principals, teachers, et cetera, on campus, and or bringing in outside, or deciding on, bringing in outside people when necessary
Correct.
to do that?
Mhm. So they would take the lead in that, and also would take the lead in partnering with all of our cities. So a lot of times people don't realize that we are in 4 different cities along with a county island. So constantly coordinating with our law enforcement agencies, our fire, and all of the city managers along with that to ensure that we have consistency. And then now taking it to even the next level with the tri-district, so that we have consistency, so that we are all using the same protocols, standards, which we have a lot of them, but just keeping on top of all of that. And then knowing that we have turnover in those positions as well, in law enforcement and in fire, and making sure that they have the current and most accurate information from us at all times.
Will there be a need for additional budget in terms of training, professional development, or whatever sort of we want to put that under, knowing that we probably have, because we don't have one person doing this now, that we have one person dedicated job, would that also
Potentially
increase
there
that?
could be. I could see initially where there were a lot of trainings that Megan and I would go to, or Gina and Megan would go to, then that person would kind of take over and probably would have like Megan attend with them. But we could potentially see some different pieces, as well as being able to truly outline the needs of our campuses for future needs from a budget perspective, to be able to come and present to the board.
Okay, very last question. You mentioned, Megan, that you've been doing this for a long time. Number one, thank you for taking this on. But I noticed, or maybe I misread it, but I think that this would be under Wendy?
The new executive
the
director.
new executive director. So how does that work? Why the placement there instead of under executive director Duplain?
So Executive Director Duplain would provide the information that she's learned, to pass it on to that person. In most cases, it's aligned with facilities, and if facilities would be under the new executive director, so it would be, their needs and discussions would be closely related.
Better aligned to that. Okay,
So.
I understand. Thank you.
And they will still work very closely with Executive Director Duplain, but also knowing that a lot of times it's financially driven. So having that direct connection to the Executive Director of Finance to be able to get the needs met as quickly as possible.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Could
if
I
there are no
comment?
further questions,
I have a
I will
comment.
move to approve the new position and job description, Director of
Can,
School
can
Safety.
anyone
as
hear me
presented.
out there? Is
Oh, I'm
anybody here?
sorry. Board Member Honak, do you have a question?
I do have a comment. Thank you. I think that this is a job, this is not a first responder type of person. If first responders are needed, they're going to be the fire department. I think Superintendent Gunning is right. Really should be an emphasis with law enforcement, actually somebody who's really highly trained in security, because this is a real specialized field and technology is moving really quickly. You need someone that understands all of this, and they can be at virtually at 14 campuses at the same time. I mean, if we're trying to protect our school district from things that have happened in other places, then we need somebody that's really qualified to do that kind of a thing. And I think that should be the real focus of finding somebody that is going to be innovative and look at our situation. They don't need training and they've been experienced with schools. They just need to know high-level security. Today, technology is dirt cheap. So, there's lots of new things that can be used, and we need somebody that's brainy enough and knows enough about it. And yes, they would need to work with a financial person to say, hey, there are things we are going to need that will cost some money, probably not a lot, that can be extremely effective. So I would highly encourage finding someone that is innovative in security, that is changing every day along with every other type of technology, things like that. If we truly want to have somebody that's going to provide safety for our school district.
Thank you, Board Member Honak. There is a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I second.
Having a first and a second, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is the proposed expenditure budget for 2022-2023, which will also be presented by Executive Director Qualls.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Gunning. School districts are required to propose a budget by July 5th and to publish that. We will be publishing it on the Arizona Department of Ed's webpage. The forms that districts use for their proposed budget are created by the Arizona Auditor General and the Department of Education, and they're based on current Arizona revised statutes. The district has over 50 funds. Our largest funds are maintenance and operations and our unrestricted capital. The maintenance and operation budget is based on our average daily membership, some weights, and then the base support level that's in statute. The Arizona Auditor General, the Arizona Department of Education and Auditor General determined that if the budget at the state level had not been approved by June 3rd, that they would publish the forms based on last year's funding amounts, that they would have needed to know that by June 3rd in order to get the forms updated, to get them to the districts, to get them time to have them proposed and published. So this is based on the prior year funding rates. We will have until September 15th to go back and increase based on the funding rates. The budget that will be brought back July 12th for adoption cannot exceed the proposed budget. So the one that will be brought back to you in July will be still based on the funding levels for 21-22. Any questions on that?
Yeah, can you repeat that?
So
The section on the, that it can't exceed.
So once a district proposes a budget, when you bring it back for the initial adoption, because you have published that, you cannot approve or adopt a budget that's more than the proposed amount.
So are you saying that we will be adopting a budget that is less than what we need or less than what is available?
So you will be adopting a budget based on the funding levels for 21-22, and then by September 15th, it will be revised and be based on the funding level that was just approved by the state.
So, for example, the average daily membership would be the same, but the funding level for that average daily membership, we can revise that part and then increase that above and beyond the originally adopted budget because we're revising it.
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
So the maintenance and operation budget limit in the proposed budget is $85 million. That includes a carry forward of $10 million, which is about $2 million higher than I originally estimated. And the override is a little bit higher. I spoke with our attorneys and our financial consultant. The override calculation is prior year ADM, but it is current year funding level. And the attorneys advise for that calculation to use the new approved budget amounts because you have to levy tax. So if we were to still base it on the prior year funding level, the taxes we would levy wouldn't cover the amount when it was revised in September. So looking at the planned spending and maintenance and operation, regular education is about $64 million and special ed about $15 million, so that is the largest portion of our budget. Salaries and benefits comprise about 83.6%. And I estimate our classroom spending for maintenance and operations will be 72.7%. The unrestricted capital outlay is based on prior year ADM, so it will be based on our 21-22 average daily membership, and the amount is the $450, which again is the 21-22 amount. So in total, the budget will be about $15.7 million. Around $10 million of that would be carryover. When we look at how it would be spent, about 50, not quite 50% of it would be for facilities and replacements. So that would be looking into the future, make sure we have funding available for roofs and things like that. When we look at the revenue source for the M&O and capital budgets, 60% of it's coming from the state and county level and about 39.87% from local taxes. Another fund we have is the Classroom Site Fund, which comes from sales tax revenue. That again is based on prior year student count, but it is weighted with Group A. And the estimate is that we will receive around $708 per student. So in total, I anticipate about a $12 million budget for classroom site funds. The majority of those funds are salary and benefits. It's base pay for teachers, also performance pay, and instructional assistants at the campuses. Other funds in this budget is adjacent ways, bond building. We have around $7 million left in bond building. Around $5 million of that will be for White Tanks Learning Center. We have community ed. Debt service is to pay our outstanding bonds. And other federal grants are around $19.8 million, and food service will be about $6.6. So when we look at our local taxes, we have a qualifying tax rate, which is set at the state level. And then we also levy the difference between our transportation control level and also our transportation support level. So our total levy will be about $21.8 million. In addition to that, secondary taxes, which are voter approved, we have the maintenance and operation and the debt service to pay back our debt. So that will be additional 18.6. Excuse me. So the tax rates are based on the amount we need to levy divided by our assessed value. And over the years, our assessed value continues to increase as you see developments come in and also the development along the 303. I'm estimating the tax rates to be just slightly lower than the prior year. I follow a Residents in Dreaming Summit just to give us a historical view of what tax rates have done in the last couple of years. And then also some additional samples of homes throughout our district, so you can see the impact on those homes. The majority of the homes are still increasing the limit of 5% per year, so we still have assessed value will be increasing for several years yet. Have any questions?
Any board member questions? I do not have any questions. Thank you, Executive Director Qualls, for the presentation. I will say I'm excited to see the revisions based on the budget that the state just passed. So that should be good news for this budget and for us going forward.
Thank you.
Board Member Honak, do you have any questions on the budget?
Thank you. No, I'm good. Thank you.
Excellent. Then I will move to approve the proposed expenditure budget for the 2022-2023 school year as presented.
I second.
Having a first and a second, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up on our agenda is item 4F, second reading and adoption of revisions to the Governing Board Policy GCCA and GDCA, also presented by Executive Director Qualls.
Thank you, Madam President. So this is the second reading. In the first reading, we had an item in there to decrease the number of hours that would be rolled forward. We have taken that out based on the discussion from last meeting. So what this will do will allow employees to use the number of hours that they have banked in their account. So it will be it could be in excess of 40 hours in a year.
To recap, there were two parts last time. This is just part one. Part two's been removed, so what we're seeing today is just part one, which we didn't have any changes to. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
While the rest of the board is thinking about that, I just want to say that I support this policy. One of the reasons that I support it is because myself and I believe the board as a whole, although you can disagree with me if you'd like when I'm done making this statement, we want our teachers and staff to take their time off. One of the things that we got a lot of feedback on in the last year or two is teacher burnout. And so it's important not only that teachers use their sick time, and 40 hours is not very much sick time, as we've learned through COVID. Hopefully, if they have more now, they will be able to take that. But in addition, hopefully they will take their personal time as well. We've taken some of those incentives away to hopefully try to change the culture from a perfect attendance culture to a self-care culture. And I would just encourage all of our teachers and staff to take that time that they have earned. Are there any other board member questions or comments? Then I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the adoption of GCCA professional staff general leave and GDCA support staff general leave as presented.
I second.
Having a first and a second, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is item 4G, recommendation to approve the pro statement for the maintenance and operation budget override election to be held on November 8th. I will present this item. At our last board meeting, there was discussion that we would like to revise the proposed pro statement. I was hoping for some submissions from other board members, but I did submit my own draft. I am not a wordsmith. However, I would be open to hearing any feedback. This particular statement is at an exact 200 words. 200 words are not a lot of words. I will just say that. But happy to hear any suggestions for improvement.
Thank you, Kim, for providing these revisions. I think these revisions look good. I think for me, the 2 or 3 priorities that I think we discussed the last time that were important to me and make sure they stayed in are there. Number 1, that it's not a tax increase, and explaining that, you know, this has been in place for a number of years, that it went from 15% and previously we had 10. I think that was an important statement that you leave in. And so those 2 things. And then secondly, the 5% additional that we were awarded several years ago went directly to teacher salaries. And so I think that was the paragraph we were trying to wordsmith to make sure we could fit all of that in. So those were my priorities. They're still there. So I am in support of this revised statement.
Dr. Dowling, any feedback?
With the new, with the budget that was passed by the legislature, I guess it was Saturday, in which base level was increased by 6.8%. Actually, I think a total of about 8.8%, wasn't it?
If you include the teacher experience index and the other compensation, yes.
Okay. With that increased, that increase in the base level, are we going to need the full 15%? That's what I'm getting at. Can we settle for 10%? Do we know?
I believe for this year, you would need the full 15%. And then if you wanted to look at that going into next year, because if you recall, when we were looking at the budget before the proposed budget, we approved expenditures that were over $7.5 million more than what we originally anticipated. And the estimates I've seen for this base increase for us is around $5 million.
So the 15% for the, I can understand that. Following school year, boy, I'd sure like to, if the override is successful, to see whether, with the increase in the base level, if we can't reduce that, that tax override bite down to less than 15%, down to 10, but I think we're a year away from that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Just to clarify, Dr. Dowling, what you're saying is if, despite this year, so take that off the table and moving forward to next year, we could still maintain what we're paying now, that 5% to teachers, if we went down to 10% after next year?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
There are a lot of what ifs in that
There's a lot of,
I guess that's what I was getting at. Like,
Right.
we're boiling it down to kind of black and white numbers, and it doesn't seem like it's quite that simple. So we're not ready to say we can make that happen in just a year when we're not exactly sure whether those numbers are truly accurate.
right. I mean, I wouldn't commit to it, but if that became one of your board priorities, and when you're starting to look at the budget, if that's what your goal is, but it would be during your budget process.
Okay. Well, and that's where we would consider our priorities, meaning student achievement, class size, teacher pay, increasing other staff, et cetera. So as we all know, there's a lot to balance there. But I do think that's a good point for future consideration if we find ourselves in a surplus Never have in the past, but maybe we will. Board members,
looking
Idema, do you
good
have
so
any
far.
comments on the pro statement?
No comments. I think that you did a really good job of taking in all our feedback from last time. So, I am a to the point person, and you're right, 200 words is not a lot, even if you're trying to be a to the point person. So I like that we made sure to get all our points in without all the extra, I don't know, fluff words, I guess. It gets all the points that we need.
Board member Honak.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Excellent. I did get one piece of feedback from Superintendent Gunning that she would like us, and again, we're at 200 words, but she would like us to wordsmith in the paragraph that begins with when the additional 5% was approved by voters. Historically, in our communication about that, we had said that we would allocate those funds to teacher and staff salaries. Is that correct? And the staff piece, meaning that we're going to incorporate not just classroom teachers, but instructional coaches, those types of things that we pay for with that money. I'm not sure how to do that, but I'm open to ideas and suggestions on how to squeeze a word or two.
I thought in the last sentence we have fulfilled that commitment and will continue to do so. That could shorten that piece a little bit.
So the request is not to replace the word teacher, but to add teacher and
Staff.
something else and staff. Okay.
Okay, could we do this? Could we say, when the additional 5% was approved by voters, our board committed to allocate these funds, saves a word, directly to teacher/staff salaries. With the slash, we just take a word in and out? Really? Okay. So that would read, when the additional 5% was approved by voters, our board committed to allocate these funds directly to teacher/staff salaries. We have fulfilled that commitment and will continue to dedicate these funds to teacher pay.
The first
Dr.
bullet
Dowling.
up above, recruit and retain effective teachers, it should be /staff also. We're talking about basically the same thing.
Well, we gotta get rid of another word.
I think you could do what Superintendent Gunning said and we'll continue to do so instead of we'll dedicate these funds to teacher pay. That will free up some extra words.
I think that adding staff is not a good idea. Whatever you do, it should say additional funds to teacher salaries. That's what, if you're interested in it passing, then that's what you should be saying.
I don't disagree, Jeremy, but I think Superintendent Gunning was just trying to be more accurate in the description, in that it is absolutely teacher pay, but there are also other staff members that participate in receiving those funds. And so we just want to be as transparent as we possibly can. I agree. I think teacher needs to stay in there because that's a very important part of that. But I think for transparency's sake, Superintendent Gunning was just asking us to add that to be completely above board.
Okay, so the changes I have so far are bullet number 1, we would change to teacher/staff, or if we have room, we can add the word and. And then in the paragraph that begins with when the additional 5% was approved by voters, our board committed to allocate the additional funds directly to teacher/staff salaries. We have fulfilled that commitment and will continue to do so. I believe we have an extra word or two to throw around. Any additional suggestions?
While I agree we need to be consistent, I'm concerned that if we are saying teachers and staff everywhere with the pay, people are going to take that the wrong way, because we know that that means the staff that are in with our kids, in like actually working face to face with our students. However, some people might take it to mean that we are hiring more admin staff or whatever, which tends to be the complaint, regardless of if that's true that we actually don't overspend there. But I don't want people to think that that's where the money's going to go. So do we have to say it in both places?
No?
I think I would make this suggestion to, if you're going to leave it just teachers, I would do so in the first bullet point and keep teacher and staff down below, just because that's a a specific financial thing that we're saying to do, that we have done. So I think that I'm understanding your point, and I think Jeremy's making the same point. I think keep it teacher, staff, and maybe just leave it as the teachers above, potentially.
I think that's a good compromise, because it's well known that there's a teacher shortage. We know there's also a staff shortage, but that's a separate issue. So yeah, I think that would be a good compromise.
Okay, I think that leaves us under the limit.
Okay, so I will move to approve the pro statement with the changes only to the paragraph that begins with when the additional 5% was approved by voters, and updating that sentence, that paragraph, to read as follows: when the additional 5% was approved by voters, our board committed to allocate the additional funds directly to teacher and staff salaries. We have fulfilled that commitment and will continue to do so. So moved.
I will second.
Having a first and a second, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, I will move to recess the special meeting and convene into executive session.
I will second.
Having a first and a second, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
I can hear nothing. Can anybody hear me? Major Tom to ground control. Over. No, they just have done the. I don't know how to do it. I am cut out of the executive session, period. I hear nothing and nobody hears me, period. because they cut off the public.
Right.
Is it,
Can you just check your email just for a second?
was it, yes, it's not going to be there.
Back up one.
Hey, Jody.
All right, we are back from our executive session, and I will move to reconvene this special meeting and adjourn the executive session.
I second.
Having a first and a second, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I move we adjourn the special meeting and executive session. Got to be quicker than that,
Well,
Melissa?
we already moved
Already
that.
did
We
that.
just voted on that, but you are welcome to motion to adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, this special meeting.
Oh.
I'm motioning to adjourn the special meeting with
Oh.
executive session. That's the title of this, right?
No, it's 6B.
Sounds good.
I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the agenda. I move we adjourn this meeting we are in right now.
I second.
Having a first and a second, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Aye.